Recently, Hollywood was thrown into turmoil when a handwritten 11-page letter was discovered inside Paul Newman's private safe. The man with the legendary blue eyes, long regarded as the embodiment of class and moral integrity in American cinema. Yet, in the following pages, Newman recounted a series of secrets that he claimed had never been spoken aloud. The untold truths about Elizabeth Taylor, from the scandalous affair with her best friend Debbie, Reynolds' husband, to her disturbing obsession with plastic surgery, and the Bam rejuvenation serum she once used to fight. Time and even a mysterious bond with a female makeup artist who stayed by her side through her darkest years. In today's video, we'll uncover each of those hidden truths, one by one. And trust me, the fifth revelation will make you see Elizabeth Taylor in a completely different light. I used to think she was just a movie star until I saw her do that. Right inside my own house. Those were the opening words that unveiled a secret Hollywood had buried for nearly 4 decades. Elizabeth Taylor once ran a secret underground network, transporting illegal AIDS medication. The story began in 1983 when Los Angeles was drowning in fear over the AIDS epidemic. Major names like Rock Hudson, Freddie Mercury, and Anthony Perkins were all stricken by the disease, while the government remained silent. Hospitals refused to admit patients' experimental drugs, stayed locked in labs, and those infected were shunned by society. Amid the chaos, Taylor, then 51, stepped before the cameras and declared, "I am not afraid of them, and I will do what others are too afraid to do." But according to Newman's letter behind the flashing lights, she was planning something far bolder than anyone could imagine. According to the letter, Taylor secretly formed a small circle of doctors, nurses, and film industry couriers. They called it the White Angels Network, an underground operation that smuggled experimental drugs from Zurich, Switzerland, Guadalajara, Mexico, and Paris, France into the United States using private flights. Those drugs Act and DDI had not yet been approved by the FDA, but Taylor believed that waiting meant letting people die. Newman described witnessing one night at her bare mansion. Taylor sat with a few close friends, the table covered with unmarked boxes of medicine and envelopes listing patients' names. Under the warm golden light, she whispered, "We can't let them die just because the government is afraid of being wrong." According to Newman, among the people Taylor helped were Rock Hudson, the first openly gay star to reveal his AIDS diagnosis, Rudolph Nerv, the legendary Russian dancer, and even Anthony Perkins, the actor who would later die in 1992. The most shocking revelation of all was that Newman himself once received the drug from Taylor. In 1984, when he was diagnosed with severe pneumonia and respiratory failure caused by long hours on chemical-heavy film sets, Taylor sent a box of immune boosters to his home. "I didn't know what I was taking," Newman wrote. "All I knew was that the next morning I felt strangely alert." It wasn't until years later that he learned those pills had come from one of the unapproved antiviral batches. But the story didn't end there. In 1986, Los Angeles Times reporter William T. Close anonymously published an article exposing a Hollywood actress who ran an illegal drug network under the guise of charity. The rumor spread like wildfire, prompting CBS to air a special segment titled Compassion Beyond the Law. Although no one dared name her directly, everyone understood there was only one woman in Hollywood with the power, the money, and the audacity to do it: Elizabeth Taylor. In the letter, Newman wrote, she neither denied nor confirmed it. She just smiled, poured a glass of wine, and said to me, "Paul, some laws aren't written to protect people. They're written to restrain them." He added that she spent millions of dollars maintaining the network, including hiring private pilots to fly from Mexico City to Van Nuys Airport and hiding the medicine inside film prop crates. On several occasions, shipments were held at customs, forcing Taylor to call on her connections in the diplomatic world for help. But that very act made her the center of intense controversy. While many hailed Taylor as the savior of forgotten souls, others accused her of playing God. Time magazine once wrote, Elizabeth Taylor is walking the razor's edge between saint and sinner. Some of her colleagues, like Joan Collins and Shirley Mann, openly questioned whether Taylor's actions were purely altruistic, suggesting she was trying to preserve her image as Hollywood's humanitarian goddess after a string of romantic scandals had tarnished her reputation. Newman also mentioned a lesser-known detail. She was once verbally warned by the FDA and customs authorities after a shipment from Europe was found addressed to E. Taylor, although the incident was quickly handled quietly. Several insiders confirmed that Taylor was terrified, but she didn't stop. From 1987 onward, she shifted toward more public efforts, founding MR, the Foundation for AIDS Research, alongside Dr. Michael Goddardle, the first physician to identify the HIV virus in the United States. The organization became the foundation for Taylor's ongoing humanitarian mission, this time through legitimate channels. However, Newman asserted in his letter that everything began because Liz wanted to prove to the world that she was immortal. He wrote, "She saved lives, but I'm not sure she did it for them or for herself." In the final passage, Newman left a single line, part judgment, part compassion. She crossed the limits of the law only to find herself becoming the law of her own life. From the story of that underground network, Newman subtly led readers into the next secret. The betrayal that once shook Hollywood when Taylor lost her dearest friend in exchange for a love affair that America would condemn. That story began on March 22, 1958, when Taylor's private jet, the Lucky Liz, exploded over the skies of New Mexico, taking with it the life of her third husband, Mike Todd. Hollywood was stunned. Taylor fell into despair, sleepless gaunt within days. The funeral at Forest Lawn drew nearly the entire entertainment world. Frank Sinatra, Lauren Beale, Kirk Douglas, and the couple Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Pfizer. Debbie was the first to approach Taylor, embrace her tightly, and whisper through tears, "You're not alone." She didn't know that those words would haunt her for the rest of her life. Newman recounted that a few weeks after the funeral, Taylor began inviting Fisher, Debbie's husband, to her home just to talk. At the time, Debbie was pregnant with their second child and suspected nothing. But those talks grew longer and longer, and according to Newman, every time Pfizer left Liz's bare mansion, he looked like a man walking out of a trance. Newman wrote that Pfizer himself confided in him during a party at the Beverly Hills Hotel, saying, "Liz makes me feel like I'm the only person alive in the room." In other words, Taylor wasn't just comforting him, she was seducing him. That May Associated Press reporter Bob Thomas captured a photo of Taylor and Pfizer leaving La Rue restaurant on Sunset Boulevard after an intimate dinner. The Los Angeles Times published it the next day, and all of Hollywood went mad. Late-night shows like The Steve Allen Show and What's My Line mocked the affair relentlessly. When Debbie Reynolds found out she called Taylor, the response became one of the most infamous quotes in showbiz history. "Yes, Eddie and I are together. Maybe you should just accept it." Newman wrote that the words were colder than a Nevada desert night. The American public was genuinely shocked. Taylor was both a grieving widow and the world's most beloved actress after the success of Giant 1956. Yet within months, she had become the woman who betrayed her best friend, a label the press would pin on her for nearly a decade. Life magazine ran the headline, "The beauty who stole America's heart and her best friend's husband." Radio stations across New York received thousands of angry calls demanding a boycott of Taylor's films. MGM, her studio, held emergency meetings and even considered terminating her contract. Newman recalled that on the set of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof in 1958, the tension was palpable. Every time Liz walked in, the entire crew stopped talking. He remembered director Richard Brooks whispering to him, "She's living in her own movie. She just doesn't realize the audience isn't on her side anymore." Under immense pressure, Eddie Pfizer filed for divorce from Debbie Reynolds in May 1959, just one day before marrying Taylor in Las Vegas. The ceremony had no guests, no photographers, no flowers. As he signed the marriage certificate, Fisher reportedly wept, saying, "Hollywood will never forgive me." Paul Newman wrote that he visited Taylor a few weeks later at her bare mansion, now filled with white roses. She was glowing, he wrote, saying she'd finally gotten the man she wanted. But just a few months later, she grew tired. Eddie was no longer the forbidden lover. He was just a weak man living in her shadow. Another line near the end of the letter would ignite years of speculation among Hollywood historians. Throughout that marriage, Liz often wrote letters to Richard Burton, a man she hadn't yet met, saying he was the only kind of man who could handle me. Those letters, Newman noted, were archived in Warner Brothers. Vaults dated 1960, just a year after Taylor married Pfizer, by 1962. When she was cast opposite Burton in Cleopatra, Taylor joked to Newman, "I guess I'll have to apologize to Debbie again." But this time, things would go far beyond an apology. As he closed this section of the letter, Newman wrote she didn't steal Eddie because she loved him. She stole him to prove she could. For Liz, love was,